Hello and welcome to the Movie Trap. My name is Russell Carlson. With me, as always, is Chris Borough. Say
we
hi,
need your
Chris.
voice.
Hello,
so
Chris.
you can understand.
Okay.
Like,
hello, Chris.
you're not the sound of a can
The
opening.
point is to introduce your sound, your voice.
Yes, no.
That other voice you are hearing is Zach Powers.
Welcome to Fat Sam's Grand Slam.
That's right. No, my name's Fat Sam. And this guy, we're no ordinary mugs. On the Movie Trap, one person picks a theme, and each of the three hosts pick a movie based on that theme. Each host starts with 10 points for the theme. Plus, we get to have the chance to increase our voting total by gaining bonus points from each other. Once we've watched all three movies, we use those points to decide who wins the theme, and whoever's host, or in this case, significant other, chose the movie gets to pick the next theme. Previously on the Movie Trap, we wrapped up the theme that I chose, movies directed by Sam Peckinpah, and I was unjustly and savagely betrayed by my twin brother.
You used a legal voting methods.
No matter.
I believe that justice,
which are debatable.
Justice was very much served. Very much served. But yes, keep going.
Debatable. And giving Zach Powers the win, which means Zach Powers picked our current theme, which you find yourselves on the threshold of, which is ladies' choice, or better halves, as I like to say. So the idea is that each of our significant other picks whatever movie they want.
Nobody deserved to win last time, so nobody gets to pick.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. But now is a great time to introduce our wonderful guest, Zach's girlfriend, Shannon Camp, who made good on her threat to chose 1976 Bugsy Malone. Shannon, how are you doing?
I was just about to say, I'm glad Zach's not attached to holding on to his win streak, because Bugsy Malone is not going to be anyone's favorite of these categories.
Well,
the other two women could pick almost anything and walk away with it. But being the sadist that I am, I've just really been dying to have a chance to force people to watch this movie and talk about it with me. So here we are.
We have discussed the degree to which the people, the significant others in this case, actually care about whether we win or not. In your case, I don't think it's that. I don't think you particularly care.
It was more of an active sabotage, is what I would say.
But I don't know, Sarah. Sarah, it's tough to say what they'll say, what they think, whether they
Sarah
care.
and Sarah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Sarahs. We have the triple S. Shannon, Sarah,
Tonight,
and Sarah.
Please call me Fat Shan.
I thought
if somebody could refer to me as Babyface as well.
Blousy is such a weird nickname.
It does seem accurately
that,
very 1930s, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we get into this custard cream pie filled delight of Bugsy Malone, let me go ahead and I mentioned some bonus points earlier. So each host has 3 bonus points that they can give to each of us for absolutely any reason. And I think since Shannon was good enough to trap us in the movie trap in Bugsy Malone, she gets a point if she wants it.
I do.
So as of right now, since it started, everybody still has 3 points. Everybody has 10 points. We're all even. It's brand new. So with that, Zach Powers, why don't you tell us the journey that is Bugsy
Malone is a 1976 children's musical gangster film directed by Alan Parker.
Sir Alan Parker, to you.
I don't think that is accurate. I do not believe he has been knighted.
Right?
Oh, really? On the back of that book, I'm pretty sure he's referred to as Sir Alan Parker.
Well, we'll do a fact check a little later. As most children's musicals do, this movie opens with a gangland hit. A man/child. Listen, let's just right away. All the characters.
Yeah, you should open with that. All the
characters are played by children.
Is a kid.
They are ostensibly filling the roles of adults and behave as though they were adults for the most part, but they are all played by children. So a child is on the run down a period street, sort of a Prohibition-era street, and he is cornered by a number of members of a rival gang with some Tommy gun-looking devices. After they ascertain that he works...
I thought they were potato guns. So they look like kind of like
they sort of,
sophisticated
or
potato
cannons,
guns. Maybe. Yeah.
So after they ascertain that he works for Fat Sam, a notorious gangster, he is shot to death by whipped cream out of these whipped cream cannons that these children have. So we, that is the basic setup. We go to Fat Sam's Speakeasy, one of the primary locations for the movie. Fat Sam is a Prohibition-era mobster / club owner.
Got his illegal soda in the bottom.
Yeah, is that
Sarsaparilla Distillery.
Right, sarsaparilla, right.
He's got a lot of rackets. I assume he pushes people for protection money and all that good stuff. We never.
It's like a really hard version of Candyland. It's weird.
Yeah. I don't think we ever actually see any form of law enforcement in the movie.
Yeah,
there is.
Sure
There's
you do.
the Irish detective.
Right.
He's always always manages to slip on something.
Yeah, they harken back to the Keystone Cops.
Yes,
There's
indeed.
a few Keystone Cops bits. Yeah.
Anyways, Fat Sam is being pushed by a rival gang leader named Dandy Dan while trying to operate his club. Meanwhile, he's having auditions for a new singer. One of the auditions is a woman named Blousy Brown.
Very much a little girl. When he says woman, he means a little girl,
Right.
just so you know.
But again, I'm going to use
of
age
course.
references interchangeably but they
Yeah.
are all played by children, but also they are meant to be adults, I guess.
But there's something important that Zach hasn't mentioned, which is that Dandy Dan's gang it's the only gang to have the guns.
Yes, they're the only gangs that have these guns.
It's like an arms race.
Regardless, so Dandy Dan is pushing Fat Sam. They have these new type of technology, this sort of like, I think maybe it's an analog for like automatic weapons or something like that in the 1920s.
It's the Tommy gun.
Yeah,
it's
pretty
the
much.
introduction of the Tommy gun. Yeah.
Fat Sam is using old-fashioned custard cream pies to
Execute people.
Whereas obviously Dandy Dan has these splurge guns, as they're called, that can fire much more rapidly. Regardless, they're having auditions. Fat Sam is too distracted to actually pay much attention. But Bugsy, who's sort of a bar sarsaparilla fly at Fat Sam's, he's sort of a grifter, penniless, down on his luck, but charming.
He's sort of a jack of all
boxing,
trades. Because
boxing
he's
like a
promoter.
boxing producer.
He finds boxers and does other odd jobs mostly.
Yeah, but he's poor, but like kind of he's like semi a con man. He's just kind of like flying by the seat of his pants through life.
Yeah, absolutely.
They introduce him as like a trickster hero, but he doesn't do that much tricking for the rest of the story, so it's a little odd.
No, the song about him,
going.
we'll get into the songs a little later. It's worth noting there are songs that happen occasionally. We'll talk about them later.
I feel like a loaded gun right now, just waiting to be shot. I am
You are a splurge gun.
Ready.
You are ready to splurge all over this movie.
You have no idea.
The title track song is about Bugsy and his character, and I'm not sure how accurate it is, but we'll talk about that later.
Venerable Paul Williams, indeed.
Yeah. But Bugsy meets Blousy, and they immediately sort of have a flirtatious relationship. But it's interrupted when Dandy Dan's gang comes to Fat Sam's Grand Slam, the name of the club, and unloads on it with their splurge guns. So this gang war is heating up, folks.
The massacre.
So obviously
and we have said the thing where
this isn't the massacre.
That's not the
gets hit in
They
the
just
face.
shoot the wall. This isn't that one.
This is more like a warning.
Oh, right, that's right. This is
But
like
have we
mentioned?
mentioned that the splooge guns and the cream pies are actually murder weapons? It's like
Yeah,
the
the
kids
people-
get killed when they get
You
splatted
get-
with them. Okay.
Once you get hit with it,
Yeah.
you are dead.
You're
Even
out.
if it's just a pie's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah. As the narration says, whatever game it was everyone is playing, you are out.
Yeah. Basically, yes. So that's the
said.
situation. These are murders. Like, it's sort of guys and dolls, but it's also clearly inspired
No,
by
it's
things
not.
like The Godfather. Like, I think that it takes inspiration from a little bit of both, but like more the latter, like that 70s
Definitely.
mobster movie where, like, you know, think of Sonny Corleone getting shot down at the traffic turnstile, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But with cream pies. So they both use and take the cannoli in this particular situation.
Oh, God. Correct. You got my point. Oh, God. You got a point for that. Oh, God.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Oh,
the murder
it's
weapon.
the-
of
the-
vote.
the-
point.
The flavor
good
of that
job.
joke is hitting me, but you got a point from me. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Bugsy manages to get Blousy another audition with Fat Sam. It's her dream to be a singer. She actually wants to move to Hollywood and make it big. But she doesn't have the money to do that. And they're clearly like destined for a relationship, although they're slightly derailed by Tallulah, a veteran singer of Fat Sam's.
She's
who
the
is,
star of the show at
Yeah.
Fat Sam's. And she's Fat Sam's girlfriend.
yeah, and she sort of is flirtatious with Bugsy a lot, and Blousy sort of gets jealous of their relationship, even though Bugsy's not really that into Tallulah. Like, he doesn't go for it very much.
They have
Yeah,
history.
she's, it's also...
It is implied they have such history,
Yeah,
though.
yeah. But it also is implied that
Yeah.
Tallulah is sort of like a femme fatale sort of thing, that
Yeah,
she's kind of
absolutely.
dangerous.
I
Yeah.
will definitely
Yeah.
into that.
It's... Yeah, young Jodie Foster playing
Yes.
Tallulah in
Yes,
this, by the way.
Tallulah
Yeah.
is young Jodie Foster, and Bugsy is Scott Baio, young Scott Baio. Those are the two people
Indeed.
you'll probably recognize the names of right away. So at this point, Fat Sam sends his guys Fat Sam does hire Blousy, which she's thankful to Bugsy for, but he also sends out some of his guys to find the splurge guns, but they're lulled into a trap, and this is the massacre. Almost all of Fat Sam's men are killed by Dandy Dan's guys, and out of desperation, Fat Sam hires Bugsy to be his new driver, since he has almost nobody left to work for him. They end up going to the forest for a meeting with Dandy Dan. And
This made Zach so mad.
It did. Listen, if you're going to have a tete-a-tete with a rival gang leader, right? You go to a public fucking place. You don't go to the forest where it's like the easiest place to murder somebody. You go to the most popular restaurant in town and talk with a lot of eyes on you.
I'll have to double check this in my notes, but I have a feeling this might be based off scenes like this in old gangster movies where they needed
I
to
have
shoot
a
off a lot of
lot of
guns and they
thoughts
just
about-
produced it off in a forest. That way they didn't have to clear it with the city or any of the other people about all the
We
shooting
also
and
have
stuff.
like
But yeah.
one outdoor location for this movie, the street that everything is shot on, and everything else
Right.
is in a room.
Yeah. Regardless,
Soundstage.
surprise, surprise, the forest meeting turns out to be an ambush. Bugsy manages to get Fat Sam out of there before he's killed. And Fat Sam gives him a few $100s out of gratitude. Bugsy, who has continued to see Blousy, and they have a number of nice dates, is like, all right, we're getting out of this crazy town. We're going to Hollywood like you always wanted. We're leaving tomorrow. And obviously Blousy's like super happy with that. It's her dream. But before they could do it, Bugsy is robbed, and all of his money is stolen, but he is saved by a man/child named Leroy, who beats the tar, I guess, out of these muggers.
Just want to say, there's 30 minutes left in the movie at this point, and we're
And there's
introducing a new
so
character.
much that he hasn't even covered.
Right.
Because the plot is so
I'm going.
episodic.
I'm going.
We'll talk
Yeah,
about it.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to. So Bugsy sees potential in Leroy, like we mentioned. He used to be like sort of a boxing guy. Like he arranged boxing matches and stuff. He like pressures him into becoming a boxer. And Leroy and Bugsy become sort of fast friends. But after Sam's last loyal guy is killed by a malfunctioning splurge gun prototype that they're working on, Sam, again, out of desperation, offers Bugsy a ton of money to, like, come work for him again and be sort of his guy to track down the location of the splurge guns. Bugsy and Leroy, together, figure out where the warehouse full of these guns are and recruit basically a small army of unemployed vagrants.
Bugsy is Lenin,
like dudes from the
basically,
soup
in that he's
kitchen.
got an eye for talent.
Yeah, they go to the soup kitchen and recruit a bunch of guys who need work.
By yelling, "What's the matter with you?" at them.
But they also did the classic, the whole thing, whenever there's a problem that comes up in a musical, they solve an intractable problem with a musical number that's completely emotion-based and not based off any, like, practical thoughts that are going into it. So he's just like, y'all are lazy and sad, and I'll call you bad names, but it's all to a beat and a rhyme. So then at the end, everyone's up and dancing and like, all right, let's go burn the Reichstag, or whatever you talked us into, little man.
These men who have been left behind by society find new life in crime. So good for them. They become professional criminals.
For like 2 days, they're about to all get shot in the head.
Well, that's true.
Like Lenin.
Spoiler, we haven't gotten there yet. They do successfully steal a load of these guns. So now Fat Sam has some new guys and a bunch of guns. So the tables are a little bit more evened. The odds are evened, I should say. Which, in retaliation, Dandy Dan and his men move against Sam and attack his club, starting a massive shootout in which every single character except Bugsy and Blousy is killed. Bugsy and Blousy run away to Hollywood, though also there's a song where everybody decides they can just be friends, so they're also kind of not killed.
I can explain the ending of the movie.
Regardless, just for the summary's sake, that is the end of the movie. Bugsy and Blousy get away. Everybody else is killed / not killed, becomes friends. And that is Bugsy Malone, the gangster musical starring children, but with all the songs sung by adults.
The fever dream of a school play karaoke contest.
And that's important to know.
As the poster says, the good movie comes out every year, but a good musical is once every 10 years. It seemed very specific on the poster. Don't know why it had to be a decade for a musical, but yeah.
I will say, though, that last number, I get why, because like it when the movie was released, it didn't do that well commercially, but critically, it was actually pretty well received. I mean, Siskel and Ebert loved it. Pauline Kael didn't, and
I took down a quote from Pauline Kael about this movie.
But it was pretty well received, and I sort of understood why it was well received in that last musical number, because it's an anti-war vibe, isn't it? Like it's sort of got this whole violence isn't the answer, we're killing our children, that kind of thing. That's kind of the vibe I got.
Yes, well, I'd like to speak on sort of the meta text of this movie a little bit, if I can. So, like Zach said, it wasn't maybe necessarily a huge hit at the time, but it became an enormous cult hit over time. It's a huge cult hit in Britain. It's a beloved cultural, fascination, I guess you could say.
I did read that even upon its initial release, it did pretty poorly in the United States, but it did do pretty good in Britain almost right away. And if you watch British sitcoms or television shows, you'll see references. Like The Thick of It and In the Loop both reference Bugsy Malone. Like, I think there's a character in The Loop who says of Washington, D.C. that it's like Bugsy Malone, but with real guns.
Sure, I mean, but it was also shot in England, too. It was a co-production of the United Kingdom. So, they had a stake in it.
It's American kids and it's an American set story, but it's really more of a British created production, British fascination. So even before Bugsy Malone and continuing up to this day, there's a definite obsession in British culture with American gangster culture and all of that. So I think that they were kind of primed to enjoy something like this even more. And it was so popular that it has become, I think, probably like a rite of passage for every British kid to be in this as a school play. Sorry, I looked at Zach because he is Sir Alan Parker. We looked it up on online.
So he
Zach
is,
opened up a window. He is indeed Sir Alan Parker.
Alrighty. OMB or whatever.
But because of the massive popularity of this movie and the ensuing stage play, which there's also been professional versions of, which personally I can't imagine, but the kids actually sing the songs as was originally intended instead of having the adult tracks. But it also spawned several novelizations. There's the comic book version, which I have here to show on camera in a little bit.
Oh my God, really?
Yes.
Oh God.
And there was also like a young adult chapter book novelization. And my mother was 11 years old when this movie came out and living in Ireland. So basically like the target demographic for it. So growing up, we had the original 1970s novelization, which was also written by Alan Parker, because this is like his passion project. It's I don't totally understand that, but that's another matter entirely.
Well,
yeah,
this was his.
Go ahead.
This was his directorial debut, if I remember correctly. Like this was the first major film he did, and like it was an idea that he came up with his kids while driving on a very, very long road trip. So like one of the kids just piped up and said, "Dad, you should make the heroes the kids." And for some reason, he ran with that and turned it into a whole film, which is why I'm also kind of questioning the whole thing. And I also remember a whole lot of weird names in Phantom Menace that were caused by George Lucas's kids making weird suggestions to a filmmaker.
I just gotta...
You also have, like, Princess Bride.
Yeah. So I just wanted to get through talking about the novelization, though, because it really does kind of create an outer framework to the movie that's not in the movie. So it sort of is almost like the concept for the movie is put in as like a prologue and epilogue at the beginning and end. And it explains that it's all a game. And like everything you're seeing is like totally the kid's perception of it, which as a kid, I remember reading that and being like, that's annoying. That sucks. Because as a kid, you watch Bugsy Malone and you honestly don't question how weird it is that the kids are playing the adults. You just think that's cool. But then at the end, basically what happens is everyone gets, shot or cream pied, hit with the splurge, as they call it. And it is like Razzmatazz, the piano player, the band leader, is fed up with the violence, and it's gotten so absurd, like literally everyone is dead. So he slams on the piano, which is like this, it happens in the movie, it's like a noise that makes all the kids stop and like catches their attention. And the song is supposed to be like a message of like, we went too far with this game and now our game is over because everyone on either side is dead. So I thought that was really interesting. For me, it adds a little bit of clarity to what's happening at the end. After literally every single named character is basically shot in the face in the universe of this story.
It ends like True Romance, kind of. Like, everybody who was like a secondary character just gets killed off, and it's just the two main stars that are left at the end, if I remember correctly. I think that's how that show ends.
Even the kids in the phone booths from around the world who like aren't at the speakeasy. I thought that was kind of like a funny touch. Even they keep cutting to these kids who are like reporters from around the world in these phone booths, like sending information to different press offices.
Yeah.
It actually looks like a Wes Anderson movie thing.
Yeah.
It's like these very proper phone booths that they're in. Anyway, they all get cream pie. There's like a reporter on TV who's not there because he's in a TV studio. He gets hit in the face with one. It's sort of like an interesting... There aren't very many moments in the movie overall that are like meta humor. There are a few, but the ending really feels that way.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, Alan Parker, I knew who was first introduced to Alan Parker with Pink Floyd's The Wall back in middle school.
He also did Mississippi Burning, and it's worth noting right now.
And Angel Heart, the movie that got Lisa Bonet.
He died about 7 months ago. So he died pretty recently, back in July.
Yeah.
Well, I've noticed, like, with his career going across it, from just having seen all his movies come out, because most of his work came out when I was in high school, or at least like during that period it got popular. It's either super, super well received or super poorly received. Like, he doesn't have a whole lot of things that are just in the middle. It's either like a Mississippi Burning with like super critical acclaim, or like a Road to Wellville, where you're like, oh, that movie.
I think
it's very strange.
The movie Angel Heart got Lisa Bonet fired from The Cosby Show, which is rich coming from Bill Cosby.
Yeah. Oh no, it was lambasted when it came out. Yeah.
Wasn't Mississippi Burning the movie that got Ed Burns, co-creator of The Wire, into show business? I'm pretty sure it was.
Maybe.
I'm unclear. Don't know. But anyway, I think Shannon kind of brings up a good point, because like Alan Parker, I immediately thought of, like, he also did like Fame and stuff. So he's not adverse to musicals, and he does. This one you could tell was, I'll say, a little amateur. Maybe it's just because it's the kids, and maybe it's just because it's his first film. And
it feels like a school play.
Yeah,
like
I really do understand.
Jodie Foster walks in.
Watching this movie again in my 30s, I kind of understood what my parents went through when they would have to go to my brother's high school plays. I now kind of understand. And here's the thing that I sort of, and I understand I think one of these biggest flaws with this movie that takes you out of it almost immediately is the male over-singing of the grown-up overdub of the children singing. And I understand that was a production snafu, but it wasn't worth it. You know, it just wasn't worth it.
It's a nightmare, especially because they have like 4 studio voices tops. All the girls are being sung by the same woman doing the same character voice, basically.
Yeah, I looked it up, and there were 4 names listed. They left the potential open on the page for there might have been more people involved, but they only listed 4.
Right.
You can hear it.
It's mostly Paul Williams.
2
you
men,
can hear it's Paul
Paul
Williams.
women.
He's got a pretty
women
recognizable voice.
A lot of May Quetzal like impressions too. That's one of the things I noticed. Like a lot of the ladies had Betty Boop voices.
I think that,
well, they do that for everyone but Blousy.
Yeah, and that's why I sort of wish that, you know, like, the songs are pretty good. It's Paul Williams.
I think the songs are. I think the vast majority of the songs are good. I think we're the very best at being bad guys. I think that scene, for me, that scene is the movie. If more of the movie were like that scene, these like those 4 very charismatic kids doing their little funny song and dance, and if they were actually singing it, it would be like, this is what the movie should be.
I think because this movie's dealing with like augmented reality, right?
Yeah.
You're already dealing with that, and then to break it yet again, it really is like it. I immediately was put way. I was fine with the opening song sung by Paul Williams, Bugsy Malone, because it felt more like a
song.
But as soon as the second song starts coming on, and I immediately know, I'm like, wait a minute, this is not.
It looks creepy to have these deep adult voices coming out of sometimes very young children, like seemingly as young as 9 years old.
Right. Married with.
There's also
you're already watching kids act like grown-ups, and they're supposed to be treated and doing grown-up things. You know, it's when you're
there's
already.
Some tone. There are like tone issues with this movie that feel a little bit like if someone was to arc it out, it would look like Roller Coaster Tycoon. It's weird because it doesn't have a straight through. It's like a lot of like, suddenly this is happening, suddenly that's happening.
It's episodic. It's very episodic.
Yeah.
It's like Bugsy's various
and again,
adventures.
I think that almost a lot of the scenes feel like references to other, like, so there's like the massacre scene, and that feels very Godfather-ish, but then there's also the scene where he's on the date with Blousy, and that reminds me of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, to be honest.
I
the
really
scene with the bike.
I watched this with Sarah, and I told her by the end of this is a movie about movies. That's really what this is.
I think these references go back two actual 1930s
Indeed.
movies.
Indeed.
Something I want to talk about with the kids playing adult roles is, even though it feels like a weird one-off in Bugsy Malone, that was actually a hugely popular thing in the 1930s. Shirley Temple got her start in these things called baby burlesques, which I know sounds bad, but put that aside for a moment. It meant something different back then. The idea was that it was kids acting out like sometimes just the hit grown-up movies of that year. And that is what this put me in mind of. It almost felt like resurrecting an old like vaudeville type thing, more so than creating
Correct.
something new. It's like, it feels older than it is, but like it still looks incredibly 70s because of like the blue eyeshadow and stuff.
and like just the way it's shot, like it seemed like every shot had like that low contrast light, so everything has like that dreamy schmear on it. I just want to ask another film that this reminded me so much of another film, and I want to ask if you guys have ever seen it. Pennies from Heaven, the Dennis Potter film.
No,
I've heard of it,
Have
but
you
I've
seen
never
it?
seen it.
No.
Yep.
There was
the ending
person
of
on
this
a podcast I used to listen to loves that movie.
Well, it's very strange, and it reminded me of that one because, like, for some reason, at the start of the 80s into the 90s, like, metafiction became a huge thing. And Pennies from Heaven is essentially a straightforward narrative where it's like an intense drama about like crime and like the people getting into bad circumstances. And it's got like Steve Martin and Bernadette Peters and another Christopher Walken in a young, handsome role. But the thing is that at the end of that movie, they're going through the whole serious story. You get to the end where everything's they've had a couple little moments of musical splendor in the movie, but at the end, you're pretty sure, spoiler warning, that Steve Martin's character is about to go to the electric chair for having murdered someone and then being found guilty of it. Whether he did it or not, I can't remember exactly. But the film ends with Bernadette Peters crying outside the courthouse, I believe, thinking he's about to be killed. And then he springs outside as Pennies from Heaven starts playing. And they go through a musical montage where he's like, I just explained it and they let me go. And it like sort of like begs the question of the audience, like, what is your suspension of disbelief? How much of this will you put up with before you go, that didn't happen, that guy got put into the electric chair? So
that
the
is
ending of this with the cream pies made me think this is almost a much darker film because everybody gets murdered except for the main two characters at the end. So it's like, what level of nihilism is this?
That's
well,
why
you talk about how much you can suspend your disbelief. This truly is a movie that was meant to be for kids. Like, if you look at the graphic novel, it's like, this book is dedicated to all kids who don't like reading books without pictures. Like, it truly is a kid's property. And I grew up watching this movie over and over again, and like, talk about suspension disbelief. I didn't question a damn thing. I still know the choreography to some of these songs because I would be like trying to be like them at home in front of my TV. Like, I thought this was the coolest shit ever. Are you fucking kidding me? They get to have their own speakeasy? Holy crap!
Yeah, and that's why it's you know, a movie that is geared for children. You almost have to go another level of suspense. That's why it's difficult to watch this as an adult when you haven't been, shall we say, inoculated with it as a kid, when you don't have that you know, that sort of, my buddy and I always talked about this in high school, that like there are certain things that like you have to watch when you're at that age, otherwise you're gonna miss it. You there's like an inoculation phase.
Well,
that's what I
this
like.
Stuff is converted too for modern times.
Yeah.
Like, I've noticed that like in the YouTube era, like the bit of having adults or the bit of having kids play adults has been played a couple times. But like, if you go back, like let's just say 2003, they had that whole Sweded trend where people would like remake famous movies with children, where they would do a trailer or something like that. And it was always a funny bit because it would be like this cute little child in The Thing, or this cute little child doing lines from Serpico or something like that, where you're just like, this is just completely strange.
I remember there was an extremely popular, like one of the viral video that launched Funny or Die was that landlord video with Will Ferrell and like a 4-year-old girl demanding her rent.
Yeah, I think that was Adam McKay's little daughter who was
Yeah.
that age at the time. But I was going to say, I like watching this movie and talking about it with people who did not see it as kids because I was
For sure.
inoculated to its bizarreness. And like,
Yeah.
obviously I'm not offended by you guys saying it's bizarre. It is incredibly bizarre. But I almost feel like I can't fully absorb how bizarre it is just because of having grown up with it. I'm kind of on like the flip side of that. There was a moment when Zach and I were watching the movie this time together. The scene where Knuckles dies, I went, oh, this scene makes me kind of sad. And then, like, the gun thing exploded. Knuckles got covered in the whipped cream. Sam was, like, running around, crying and shrieking in Italian. And Zach was like, this scene makes you sad? But that was my first impulse, was like, oh, Knuckles is dead, and he was like my favorite one.
Not Knuckles. And that's, you know, it does help that the children in this movie, that's why the whole time I'm watching it is thinking, as a grown up, the question, when you're not grown up with it, I've only seen it, I think, one time, and I barely remember it. But as watching it now, the whole time I'm thinking in my head is, why? Are they kids? Are the adults played by kids? You know, and because that is such a difficult thing, I think kids at a certain age, that they don't wrestle with those questions all that much. It's much easier for them to accept these kind of zany ideas and just kind of roll with it. And for what it's worth, except for the singing bits, it's fairly consistent within that. You know, like the cars they drive around are these little pedal cars. They're almost like wagons almost, you know, that are like bicycle driven.
It's got kind of a
so weird,
Flintstones
though.
logic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, Chris, you get a point.
Why did they choose that certain things are adult and certain things are childified? Like, I really don't understand some of these choices. Like, they try to go out of their way to show that the cars are pedal cars, but these kids still own and run businesses. I don't care if they're seeming to be driving cars that run on gas.
The pedal cars, the pedal cars also still sound like cars. Like when they start going, they're still. Yeah.
Something that was so striking to me this time was the Italian restaurant scene where Dandy Dan's gang goes in and they obviously have like a specific target in this Italian restaurant. It's this kid who's there with his wife. And it's an important scene because Dan's most bumbling gang member drops the gun, and that's what alerts the press and the general public that splurge guns even exist. But like, this kid is having dinner with his wife and he gets shot in the face, and then he's just like, you know, sitting there lifelessly while she's like crying over his body and shrieking his name as the scene peters out. Like, it's truly jarring tonally, because then you'll go to a scene with Fat Sam's gang where they're all very funny. And you know, like Knuckles will be reading his own subtitles off the screen or something like that.
That was especially weird. Like, the subtitle thing is this meta thing that doesn't really recur in the same way. Right. Even in the narrative of the game, that's like joke, breaking the fourth wall of this is a movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a whole nother level on top of that they do once and then never do again.
But it's weird though, because We're the Very Best at Being Bad Guys is delivered straight to the camera, making eye contact with it.
But that's like a musical. It's like not the same as reading a subtitle.
They don't do that with like every number. They go very back and forth in between that. And something that I found funny, this movie, because of the age of the cast, has the most bewildered and frightened extras you will ever see. Especially the little boys who are in the audience for Jodie Foster's big number, My Name is Tallulah. She like walks through the audience and flirts with these boys who are dressed as men, and every single one of them looks like they are trying to evaporate out of their bodies.
Yeah, that I have to say that Jodie Foster. Okay, so the thing in the 70s with Jodie Foster is one of the weirdest periods of time, just because it's like she was... I can't think of anybody else who was that young, who was that hypersexualized or put into sexual danger in so many movies.
Brooke Shields is a good one.
Brooke Shields, too.
Yeah, Blue Lagoon.
But this movie came out about 6 months after Taxi Driver. So she must have filmed this like right after she wrapped Taxi Driver.
Well, it's Taxi Driver, there's this, and then Little Girl Who Lived Down the Lane, where she also, I know people haven't seen it, spoiler warning, it's a very young girl put in sexual peril at one point. And it happens a lot, and it's strange because it's like, why was Jodie Foster specifically the one focused on so many times with this particular thing?
Because she had the chops to do it, Borif. Because, like, I think that even though
why weren't there other stories to tell?
I know.
With
well,
Jodie
Taxi Driver is a bit different because, like, it's part of the thing is that she's young. That's what drives Robert De Niro to go crazy.
Yeah,
but, like it with Bugsy Malone, it's sort of she's supposed to be playing a grown up. So that's why she radiates in this movie.
She's amazing. She has more star power than everyone else put together, and I very much include Scott Baio in that.
He's charming enough. He reminds me of Ralph Macchio in The Karate Kid, right? He doesn't really have to do all that much. He just has to just play a cocky young kid, basically.
Some of the kids are fun, but no one really has star power the way that Jodie has.
Yeah.
When she enters in her big number,
air
especially.
Out of the room. Yeah.
And I just briefly, while we're talking about the cast here, almost all of these kids went on to do like very little, or like maybe they went on to do British TV. There is one exception.
Babyface.
Babyface. Yeah. Babyface.
Dexter Fletcher.
Is Dexter Fletcher, who appeared in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. He had a part in Band of Brothers. But more recently, he took over from Bryan Singer, directing Bohemian Rhapsody, and directed Rocket Man recently. So he's got a burgeoning directorial career going
Rocket
on.
Man is a very fun
just want to say,
movie.
He also was a scene sealer in that classic film Doom, playing Pinky, who eventually turns into the weird monster pink demon. Just a reference. He's the guy in the wheelchair in that movie.
Okay.
Well, to get back to
Bugsy Malone, I think that part of what makes this movie charming with the cast is that, for one, thank God for sound stages. Two, you have tight days on schedule when you have nothing but kids. I mean, they have a hard in and a hard out. My wife and I immediately thought of the recent Little Rascals movie. Another movie that's predominantly kids.
Who was that? I think
Penny Marshall. I think
Penny Marshall. That's it. I almost said Nancy Myers, but it was Penny Marshall.
And so like I always kind of watch these movies with that kind of in mind, that like this was probably a lot of fun for the kids. I don't know how much fun it was for the crew.
I was just going to go back to Jodie Foster because I feel like I really need to talk about her role more, because it is sort of weird. It is different from these movies where she's being sexually exploited by older characters. She really is almost like one of the antagonists of the movie.
She's the romantic, she's
the romantic
a seductress, sort of
foible, if you will. I just think it's so remarkable in a gross way. They seem to have saddled her with all the most questionable lines. How about you come over here and smear my lipstick? I like my men at my feet. And then there's a very bizarre repeated line in her big song, My Name is Tallulah, where it says, Tallulah got her training in North Carolina. And they repeat this line several times. It ends the song. And it's like, what the fuck does that mean?
What the hell is in North Carolina?
There's several lyrics, not just in My Name is Tallulah, in Tomorrow, which is this incredibly sad song that this little black janitor child has to sing about wanting to be a dancer, though he does not dance at all.
Yeah, we don't get any resolution. We don't even, that is no longer addressed.
My conspiracy theory.
This movie is 90% set up, and it's very upsetting to me, because there's characters that are introduced once and they never come back.
I feel like they're trying to hit as many 1930s story
tropes
stereotypes as they can.
sure.
Tropes, exactly, with the boxing gym and stuff. But I think he's a perfect example of a kid who was definitely cast for his singing voice. That's totally why they cast him, to sing the song, but then they ran out of
him.
time. Exactly. It's the same thing with Blousy. They give Blousy one little clip at the beginning of the scene where she thinks her and Bugsy are leaving to Hollywood, and she sings, "Ya-da-da-da, I'm going to Hollywood." And this girl has an amazing little girl voice. And I'm like, that's why they cast this sort of reserved, maybe not as charismatic as Jodie Foster little girl. They thought she was going to be singing multiple songs. But anyway, in Fizzy, the little janitor's song, he has the most bizarre lyric. It's like, let the laughter loose until your scream becomes a love shout. It's like, literally, the words do not make sense when you put them together in order. And then there are also certain songs and lyrics that feel like Muppet cast-offs. Like,
well, it is Paul Williams. I mean,
that's a compliment. That's a compliment.
Oh, yeah.
In You Give a Little Love, Fat Sam sings Flowers of the Earth. Don't you ever realize how much a real friend is worth? I'm like, what? That's not very Fat Sam. But some of these songs feel like they were maybe cobbled together from the bits of other projects.
Yeah, maybe Paul Williams just had like a little notebook and he was like, all right, well, let's see.
Sure.
Okay, this one. Yeah.
Because
I was surprised by the number of songs that sounded very familiar, and I didn't have context for them until I saw this again, because I actually did see this when I was like 9, and I blanked on it until I saw it again, and then I was like, oh, this movie. But you guys sent me a clip of one of these songs in a Pepsi ad.
But yeah.
Like a Coca-Cola ad. It's so strange.
I mean, I really like that song. I really like a lot of these songs. I think the Boxing Gym song is like incredibly catchy.
It's a good song.
I think We're the Very Best at Being Bad Guys is great. And like some of these songs would be great if the kids were actually singing them. But here's more of my proof for my conspiracy theory about these being leftover songs. They've gone to so many lengths in the script to make sure that the kids are not drinking alcohol. You know, they're drinking at the bar, wink, wink, but they're really trying to project that it's not alcohol. In Blousy's audition song for the Speakeasy, she has the lyric "stronger than wine." And in a second verse that got cut that's still on the soundtrack, she says, "So this is love, a pleasure to make it." And I'm like, they did not write a song that includes the lyrics "making love for children." And there's a reason this second verse is on the cutting room floor.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
We should briefly, just because in the interest of completionism, mention Paul Williams, who wrote all these songs, who has done a lot of stuff.
He's all over the place.
Yeah, he wrote The Rainbow Connection. He wrote a lot of songs for the Muppets. He wrote like the Muppet Christmas Carol songs. He wrote Tiptoe Through the Tulips, Rainy Days and Mondays he co-wrote. He's worked with the Monkees, Three Dog Night, Daft Punk. And the same year as Bugsy Malone, which was nominated for a now defunct category at the Oscars called Best Original Song Score and Its Adaptation or Adaptation Score.
Wow.
Which is a category I had to figure this out. The other nominees were like Bound for Glory, which is about Woody Guthrie, and A Star Is Born. It's when somebody writes a bunch of songs for a movie and then you have to write a score based on those songs. So it's a weird category. This
sounds like one of those excuse categories where it's like somebody was really well known and popular for something, and they're like, we got to give them something, but nothing they do actually fits into a proper category. So like, let's make up this weird, very niche thing where we can glom 5 things into it, but everybody knows they're going to give this one guy the award. Yeah.
But
Zach,
it's worth noting that year, the same year as he got that nomination for Bugsy Malone, he won Best Original Song, not for Bugsy Malone. None of these songs were nominated for Best Original Song, but for Evergreen from A Star Is Born, sung by Barbra Streisand, which he also wrote.
Yeah, and also Zach, you would know him from our
as the
childhood.
Penguin in Batman. I thought I was going to get you on that one.
I was going to say his Penguin experience is almost as relevant as his songwriting credits on this, because if you listen to Bad Guys, he's doing all four of Sam's main gangsters. He does like a nebbish voice for Knuckles and then a weird black scent for Snake Eyes, and he's literally just doing all these weird voices, which brings me to something else I want to talk about.
Oh, wait, real quick.
Go ahead.
We should say, when we say the Penguin for Batman, we obviously don't mean Danny DeVito. We mean Batman, the animated series from the 1990s.
Played the voice of the Penguin, yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about 1970s racism, folks.
Oh, no.
Here's the comic book, which is just the story of the movie. But look at how they drew KG Joe compared to how they drew Blousy.
Oh
So,
no.
Yeah.
I don't really want to show much
no.
more of it on camera.
It seems like it would be.
no.
This is like a fairly believable origin story for Scott Baio now, though. That I can agree to.
He drew it all. No, but even though I think that, it's unfortunate that all of the black actors are in roles that are a little bit stereotypical, like Leroy and KG Joe being fighters, Velma and Razzmatazz and Fizzy being performers, stuff like that. I could never have expected to pick up the comic book and see the way they drew those children. I mean, even though the kids have all different varying skin tones in the movie, they gave them all super dark skin, very oversized lips, just very stereotypical features, regardless of what the actors in the movie actually looked like. And I think a lot of those actors are very talented. Like Velma, the dancer who performs during Fizzy's song, is amazing. Like, that's probably the best dancing in the movie. I really, really like Razzmatazz and KG Joe and Leroy. I think they're all like really fun characters. So that's disappointing.
Sure, and it's also should be noted. I mean, like, that is how, if there were any black actors in Hollywood in the 1930s, those were the roles they were given.
Exactly. So, like, I understand they're trying to do a tropey thing, but I still don't excuse it.
Sure.
The racist caricatures, I agree, they're horrifying, and they were kind of common at that time period in a way that is very uncomfortable to go back and look at now. Like, if you try to go watch any of Rankin Bass, if you go back and try to watch any of their films, a lot of those have the stereotypical, extremely racist.
Comic,
I don't think
comic legend Will Eisner,
word
the Spirit's sidekick, is directly anyway.
The other really troubling facet of that, like, 1970s racism is the way the Asian characters are portrayed. So you have a Chinese laundry where everyone is dressed and
Sarah noticed that as well. She's like,
as stereotypical as could possibly be. And then Dandy Dan has an Asian member of his gang named Benny Lee who goes like, yeah, and screams before he like attacks. And it's just like, it feels very, very weird and stereotypical. So I felt like it would be remiss, since I was the one who asked to watch this movie, if I didn't point that out. But there was one scene I wanted to talk about where I don't know if this is just me or if this is actually something that other people noticed. So, Danny Dan has a member of his gang named Doodle, who's the one who drops the gun at the Italian restaurant. And they go back to Danny Dan's fancy mansion, and they take out the old school cream pies, and they basically, like, firing squad style, execute him in, like, a garden atrium at Dandy Dan's command. It seems like the actor who plays Doodle has some sort of physical disability, perhaps, or something. He has a very different kind of slurred speech, and I just don't want to make it I'm like ripping this kid apart. There were just things I noticed about his physicality and the way he spoke, and the way he was compared to the other kids, where I was like, I'm uncomfortable that during this scene he is the one who is like the chosen target of all the other children. It just felt
The butt of the
especially
jokes. Yeah.
I think it felt like he was coded. It felt like he was being coded as differently abled.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it was.
It was
very
one of those things
weird.
where it was like, I think it was intended to make us feel bad, but it was very much what I would call an unearned sense of sadness. Like when you go back and you watch Breakfast on Pluto, there's a memory I have from that movie that's got a really terrible scene where the mentally disabled brother is too close to an IRA car bomb when Cillian Murphy's like, oh, come back this way. And the big sad moment is this differently abled person running towards camera in slow motion as a car explodes and they die. And it's one of these things where the character was introduced, the scene was created, and all of it was set up to make us feel bad in a way that's very manipulative.
So it's the movie Precious, based on the novel Push by Sapphire.
And also I think that I think that like the overt cruelty of somebody like Fat Sam, it worked really well. Like you could tell Fat Sam is not a professional actor. But he's really
so funny.
in it. He's really
so,
in it.
Yes,
you know,
he cares so much.
Yeah,
I mean, I think he's
for
so funny.
For a lot of those, and that's very common of even the 1930s. You have people who are just sort of, they look the type. They not necessarily are a great actor, but they just kind of look the type. But I love it when actors can just go for it. You know, even if it's not particularly my bag, but if they're just in it, you know, it will impress you of what that brings out of other people. I got it. Even when you're not a professionally trained actor, all it takes is really 100% commitment, and you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
I looked up that kid, and I will say that his 100% commitment went full on in 2015 because he went to jail for 2 to 6 years for money laundering and bribery.
Okay.
Wow. Well, it's like a reverse.
John Cassisi. Yeah, John Cassisi. What did he get up to?
Reverse method acting.
That's what he got up to.
It's the role that never left
One other
him.
factoid. Yeah, one other. Oh God.
You know
one
what
other
they
fact,
say? Jack Nicholson said that if you play Fat Sam, it takes a toll on your mental.
Never the same. I usually hate to acknowledge anything positive that he does when other people can see, but I got to give my point to Zach for that Joker joke because that did get me.
Alrighty. Bonus point.
There we go. So Blousy. There is a sequence in the film where she has a daydream, and it gives me the impression that the secret coding of this movie is that Blousy might be a psychopath because she's sitting in the green room and she's gazing into the mirror, and one of her friends comes up and, do I look cute? And then she says something like, whatever. And then the lady's like, I don't look cute. And then the lady's like gazing off into the distance with Blousy.
The character's name is Bangles DeBelle, and she goes, Bangles DeBelle, you look terrible, to herself, and it's so sad. She's a little girl.
And Blousy doesn't correct it. She just goes back to staring into the distance.
But the other chorus girls are so much meaner. They are ripping this girl to shreds.
But there's a dark, weird thing with this sequence, okay? Like, in the movie, they've introduced the concept that splurge guns or getting hit in the face with a pie is death. Like, it's murdering someone, right? Her daydream is to go off to Hollywood and sit on the side as, I assume, a script girl, get the actress on stage is screwing up the scene, and the director keeps interrupting and yanking this child away, and then it finally goes, Blousy, come on up, it's your turn. And Blousy runs up, and they do the scene, and she, you know, the guy's standing there, and she pops through the door, and you think the same thing's gonna happen that happened before, but rather than doing a scene or acting, she just hits him in the face with a pie. Because they've introduced that pie and guns are murder in this film, it makes me think she's just turned into Patrick Bateman, and she straight up murdered her co-star as the first thing she did in Hollywood when she got that starring chance. Do you think that this movie's secretly a dark, a moment in this person's life before they went on to greater crimes? Like, what do you think was going on in that sequence?
It's a cautionary tale against show business, Boris.
Well, it's about violence begetting violence.
I mean, It's funny you would bring that up, Chris, because we also talked about that when we watched this. We talked about the exact same scene where, like, oh, she changes it from hug and a kiss to she shoots her co-star in the face.
Yeah.
And the director loves it, by the way. It's what he wanted. Apparently his script did not like his script.
I think what is interesting about this to me, though, is that the movie keeps forgetting its own rules, is what I think the real answer is. During that doodle execution scene that bothered me so much, one of the funniest things to watch in the background is all the boys are holding their cream pies to, throw it. And one kid gets some on his hands and he just starts licking it off. He's definitely not supposed to. He's like far enough in the background. He's like, oh shit.
I do think it's worth noting a couple of these review quotes that I thought were quite...
okay, yes, please do. Yeah, Pauline Kael savaged it.
Pauline Kael is particularly...
Yeah, she kind of made it an indictment on the whole anyway.
But a lot of them were positive. Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel both liked it.
Loved it.
Like, they called it really charming. They really liked the performances and the songs. It was catchy. Like, I think they just went with the premise and they were fine with it. Really worth watching, as opposed to being just a cute idea. It's lifted by the fine performances, terrific choreography, catchy songs, and bright photography. Like, Variety liked it. A lot of people liked it, especially Jodie Foster. But Pauline Kael's quote, she did not care for this movie. And she said the film is, quote, nothing but its god-awful idea. And then said, we're not watching actors in a story, we're watching kids doing a stunt. And so we're primed to ooh and ah the way an audience does for a chimp on the Carson show.
That's correct.
I see where she's coming from, honestly.
And I do, and I think that kind of like it's sort of the conflict that you brought out, that it's not consistent with its own premise a lot of the time.
It feels like a gimmick.
It's an idea. I think sugar-coated swill versus hard-hitting gangster drama could work if it could make up its mind about who this movie is really for. Is it for kids or adults?
Part of the trick to this movie is there's this central premise that's kind of weird, like the basic baked-in thing of like kids are going to be playing adults and cream pies are murder, and also like adults are singing the song, which is like not intentional, but whatever. And you either are able to go with that and just be like, yeah, it's a perfectly fine way to spend an hour and a half, or you're like, what the fuck is this? And I don't think there's an in-between.
And it's also like it does the first thing I thought a more successful type of this movie for me would be Who Framed Roger Rabbit, in that it is a movie about movies. It is geared for children, but also grown-ups as well.
Yeah.
And and it's also pretty consistent with its own reality. I think
the rules in that movie are very clear and consistent.
That was Sarah thought of
that one was helped because it was based off an original novel too. I think that one worked out because they spent years honing that screenplay before they finally got it to the point. But yeah, it's totally. I agree with that.
Yeah, that's a different topic for a different day. Yeah. But the idea could work. If a couple things weren't working against it. One, the production constraints of having the grown-ups overdub the kids singing, even if it wasn't the original cast singing, even if it wasn't Jodie Foster or Scott Baio, just have kids do it. Just have a kid.
Bio.
Just have just
Scott Baio.
Scott Baio. Yeah, he's Scott.
Scott Baio. Am I right, folks?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I'll only remember him as blah blah blah, and that's all I choose to. I think that the whole experience, because of that, feels very amateur, and that's why it's and most musicals are a chore for me to get through anyway.
Are we doing final thoughts? Is that where we're at right now?
Well, no.
Yeah, I think we've side saddled into final thoughts, kind of.
Okay.
Is what might have happened here.
I hijacked you into my final thoughts. But I think that most musicals are a chore for me, and this one's no exception. That being said, the kids are absolutely charming. Like they are absolutely enjoyable to watch. I did appreciate what I got sort of to be a strong anti-war vibe in the final scene. Shannon, you're bringing up the the novelization is sort of what I kept waiting for in the movie. I kept waiting for like it to cut to kids in their backyard and the parents go, "What did you do? What is all this mess?" And then roll credits. I kept waiting for that moment to happen.
Well, it was, I mean, I literally thought of the end of this movie because of reading about frickin' Dr. Strangelove.
Strangelove,
so that we got
right.
from
Yep,
that
yep.
point A to point B, B for Bugsy, is something.
Yeah, no, and like I said, you definitely made good on your threat, and it should be said, a lot of pie fights in the face, still kind of funny. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess that's my final thoughts. I it wasn't painful, but I probably won't watch it again.
I could probably give some pretty quick, simple final thoughts, and then I'd love to hear what Zach and Shannon think about this one. Alan Parker, I've loved a lot of his stuff. I've also disliked a lot of his stuff. He's a real like hit or miss type of guy. I don't fault him for always swinging real hard, even if it misses. But the part of this movie that I think I'll remember best is probably just how bizarre it was, and the fact that 2 years later he made Midnight Express. So it goes from this to the intense Midnight Express about, Turkish prisons and hash smuggling. I kind of wish that he might have done either like a lighter musical or a darker story completely. Like, I kind of wish that it had gone one direction or the other and just owned it.
Yeah.
Like, if it was kids with guns shooting each other, that itself would have been disturbing and kind of an interesting film. Or if it had just been kind of upbeat musical numbers, that would have been fine too.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a little bit odd.
I mean, I think that's why I picked the movie. I think you guys said it really well. I'll try to keep it brief since I've said so much, and then I'll let Zach close us out. But in this life, there are good movies, and there are bad movies, and there are movies that have to be seen to be believed. For me, this is a movie I enjoy, but I still think it's a bad movie. But it's a movie I like to introduce people to because you'll never really see anything like it, at least of the current modern era. And there's just something about seeing a 13-year-old girl holding a hand of an 8-year-old girl who's supposed to be her child, or a Catholic priest showing up at a child speakeasy, and the priest is also a child. And their little bespoke guns and their little pasted on mustaches that is so absurd. It almost feels like a Tim and Eric sketch or something to me at times. Like, it's so absurd. Also, I think the music would work a lot better if it had just been wholesale, handed off to the Muppets. Imagine Miss Piggy singing My Name is Tallulah. Imagine a bunch of Rizzo rats singing We're the Very Best at Being Bad Guys. They would be considered classic Muppet songs. Like, they really would. So that's it.
Absolutely. If I could give you a point, I'd do that right now, because I realized the movie I really wanted was this, but with Muppets.
Exactly.
I wanted the Muppets in this movie, and I would have loved it and been on board for the whole thing, and not
1,000%. Yep.
Yeah. I think that's a good call. I think like if that were the case, if it were like a Muppet movie, 100% Muppets, and then Bugsy was like, I don't know, fucking young Al Pacino or whatever.
Or even Ralph Macchio instead of Scott Baio. Like, whoever mentioned Macchio, much more likable in my opinion.
For sure. And
But
I've also heard he's a nicer man in general.
Yeah, I think that would have been a classic, and it makes sense that Paul Williams did a lot of stuff with the Muppets. I think once you get past the initial weirdness of some of the premise of this movie, like the kids as adult stuff, like it's putting that aside, and that's just like a weird curiosity of history. Like, that's kind of what that is. Examining it beyond that, I think it's a moderately fine way to spend an hour and a half. Like, I don't think it's exceptionally good, but it's not painful. Like Russell said, it's not bad, really. It's like a perfectly fine way to spend a little time. The songs are genuinely catchy. Like, a few days later, you still have like, we're the very best at being bad, like in your head. That was off tone, but whatever.
No, it was good.
You know,
You got a
it sticks
future.
with
You got a future, Blousy.
Yeah. Like some of the songs do stick with you, like in terms of how they sound, and I think that's an accomplishment. I think it's ultimately interesting in its premise, but as a film, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's not so much that I'm like gouging my eyeballs or beating my head against the wall watching it, but I am spending most of this movie scratching my head, being like, why?
I didn't pick it because I thought you guys were going to be like, this was great. I'm sorry. That's the hard truth.
That is fair.
No, it's good.
I feel like you're almost tiptoeing around because you're worried you're going to hurt my feelings, but that's impossible.
Okay. Nope.
No, I mean we're all like in for movies like this. It was a lot of fun. I appreciated having an excuse to watch it again because the last time I saw this, I realized while watching it, I think I was 9 years old, and it was a VHS that I think my grandparents got from the library, which is probably way more appropriate than the time I talked them into renting Hellraiser 2 and then watched it with
That's a great one.
They didn't enjoy that at all. This was a safer film.
And it was also nice because, you know, my theme with Peck and Paw is so nihilistic and violent and dark and, shall we say, extremely male-driven. So it was nice to get like these kind of nice little tunes and pies in the face and something just sort of, shall we say, innocent. That's what this movie is, a very innocent movie, and that's why I could forgive a lot of its sins, is because it's not naive. It's just an innocence about this movie that
they wanted to make a nice
forgive.
movie for the nice people.
Yeah,
that's what this movie is about.
I'm going to take the argument that I think I appreciate this movie now more that we watched it because I realized it's secretly deeply dark and nihilistic. Like everyone dies at the end. It's a very Shakespearean ending. I love that. I know that it's got the whole bit where everyone comes back to life. To me, they're all dead still.
That's just the dream sequence.
Well,
That's
speaking of coming back to life, in the Down and Out song, some of the hobos, homeless people, whatever you want to call them, are Sam's dead gangsters with mustaches on the ones that didn't already have mustaches. Bugsy sits down next to a kid and puts his arm around him, and it's literally just Lewis, Sam's most bumbling gangster, but now he has a mustache because they had the actors playing multiple roles.
I think what happens at the end, Chris, is that Bugsy sees this horrible massacre and loses his mind and imagines the situation. But in reality, he's in a room full of corpses.
And he's the reason, too, because he's the one that brought the army to the speakeasy.
They had a cut scene that was Bugsy in a padded room singing Give a Little Love in the corner.
Shutter Island.
Shutter Island.
The dark, evil ending of this is the one that I really secretly love and hope actually happened. Yes, that sounds fantastic.
Then you should watch Little Shop of Horrors, the director's cut.
I enjoy that one too.
So I guess, Chris, since you're longing for, before we get into what Chris's Sarah will trap us with next week, let's do a quick rundown of the points, because some points we're given. Chris got a point from me because he mentioned the Flintstones, and Zach Powers got 2 points for the very, very funny Godfather cannoli pun, and then from Shannon for comparing it to the Joker. So Zach has 3 points.
Shannon loves the Joker is Shannon's weakness.
Yeah, I'm known for loving the Joker. I love all interpretations of the Joker. Basically, I wish the Joker was edgier. Like, if his face was stapled onto his face,
if we just had a Joker movie that was rated R, if only we had that. That's the edgy treatment that the Joker
seen
really...
That
if there was a Joker movie that was...
I've 100% seen that movie. Definitely seen it. Know what happens because I went.
1,000 movies that it was ripping off.
It's not one of those ones that comes up on HBO and you go, oh, it's that guy's face, definitely playing Joker.
Yeah.
Definitely
I love
aware
it
that
when
one is
the Joker
intense.
hits Robert De Niro with a cream pie.
That could happen for all I know, you guys. You're like making a joke, or are you?
That would happen. All right, so with that, we are moving on to round 2 of movies chosen by our significant others. This time, round 2 is being chosen by Chris Boroff. Chris, what has Sarah chosen to trap us with?
Well, my Sarah, true to form, picked a film that she was curious about, interested in, that we'd already had a little bit of a debate on and we wanted to go back and see if I was right or she was right. So this is a thing. We're going to be watching Fire in the Sky. Her argument is that it is a terrifying movie, and my argument is that it is, well, we're going to watch together and find out.
Okay.
So that's the thing. I have a different opinion. I think might be more of a courtroom drama.
Okay.
But we'll wait and see.
I'm not super familiar with this. So,
I'm not
yeah.
either, actually. I remember, like, when it kind of came out, I remember seeing, like, commercials for it when I was a kid, but I don't think I've ever actually seen it.
It has a very memorable sequence in it that a lot of people don't remember clearly, and it is one of the scariest moments for my wife in film. So it has come up a lot in conversations, and I'm like, I think we need to revisit this so you can face down that monster. It's not as scary as it seemed like back in the day.
This is a therapy movie trap. We are going to face your fears by confronting them,
I had to
and hopefully you could move past them.
Yeah, I had to go rewatch Dreamscape to understand that the big snake-headed man was in fact not that scary anymore, and that maybe it was when I was younger it was terrifying. But she was very curious, she was very interested, and I love D.B. Sweeney, so I want to watch this movie, guys.
Okay, alrighty. Fire in the Sky, next on the Movie Trap. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for dropping the bomb and really mugging us off with all of the cream pies and the fun song and dance numbers of a very unique, one-of-a-kind movie. This is for sure one of a kind.
Thank you so much. Me. Oh, this was so fun. I'm glad I had the chance to do this. I appreciate it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, and again, we thanks for coming on. So I guess
this has been a lot. This has been a lot of fun having you on, Shannon. It was
for sure.
It was always
that's so nice.
It's always fun to see more people on, and you've always been a lot of fun to have on the show. So thank you for coming
in the Doctor Strangelove episode. You were a big hit with my wife and father-in-law. So good job.
That's nice. That's really nice to hear.
You were a big hit. Well, I guess on that note, gentlemen and lady. I guess we'll sign off by saying that my name is Russell Carlson, and for my co-hosts, Chris Boroff.
They call me
goodnight,
Slim
Gracie.
Because of my physique.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.
There you go.
We haven't worked out the bits yet.
We haven't. I've got Zach's pick down. And then for my other co-host, Zach Powers.
I do want to be a boxer.
And for that note, as we always say here on the Movie Trap, or as Zach always say, and I will continue on, Diane Ladd is too young to be Chevy Chase's mom.
That's the Movie Trap promise.
How about you, Blousy? You think I look terrible? You tell me, Blousy. Do I look cute or do I look terrible? Bangles the bell. You look terrible.